Hello, and welcome to the MarkZDrumcast. I am your host, Mark Zapata, and I am the owner and founder of MarkZDrums. I want to thank you for joining me today on this beautiful Monday. I can't say morning, I was going to say morning, but we haven't gotten there yet. On this beautiful Monday, I want to thank you all for tuning in, for stopping by and saying hello. It's been a weekend, I will say that. All good stuff, but it's definitely been a weekend. Hold on one second. Boy, this mouse is really slow today. My computer is slow. Okay, thank you for joining me today on this beautiful morning. Really great weekend. Lots of stuff, jam-packed with stuff. So I got a little extra sleep this morning, which is always good. But I'm going to detail my weekend a little bit later in the show. First, I want to talk about the importance of timing. If you look at the title of this Drumcast, it is the timing or the time tutorial. Time is super important. And by the end of this video, you will have a strong understanding of time and timing and how important it is for us as drummers, what it means, but more importantly, how do we improve our time and timing? I'm going to tell you exactly what you're going to be expecting or what you can expect if you put in some time and effort to improve your timing and your time skills. Now, we're at a weird time in the world because I'm going to say this, and some of you may not really know what I'm talking about, but think of yourself as a clock, and not a digital clock, but think of yourself as the old-timey clock that had the arms, right? Like on the thumbnail, like Miss Minutes. For those of you who know who Miss Minutes is, welcome, Louie. My co-host has arrived, and there he goes. Those of you who know Miss Minutes, a clock with a clock face, with the numbers 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, 11, all the way back to the 12, and a minute arm and an hour arm, and a second hand that ticks the seconds by, right? So think of ourselves as that. And like I said, most clocks are digital these days. I don't have one of my own. It would actually be a cool thing to have. I used to have an alarm clock, like the quintessential alarm clock with the two bells on the top. It was like bronze in color, and the hammer that goes between the two bells. And and you could set the alarm and you could hit the top of it and it stops the alarm. All of that good stuff. Like, that is a cool thing to have. If you don't have it, another cool thing to have, which is what we're going to talk about more in depth, is an actual metronome. Like an actual metronome. And just the way the clock, now being digital, the metronome is also now digital. And it kind of parallels the transition from the old-timey tick-tock clock to the digital clock, and then the old-timey tick-tock metronome, click, 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 click metronome, to a digital metronome. I'm going to take you through one of the digital metronomes that I use A little bit later in the show, we'll talk about the settings, we'll talk about how to use it. Because this is, after all, the time tutorial. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about time and what it means for us, but we're also going to talk about a metronome and how we use it and what are the benefits of using a metronome. It's going to tie into my weekend also when we get there. So we did a show last week, right? About how important it is to keep time. And that's like our number one job as drummers. Now, I'm not saying it's the only thing we do or it's the only thing we're good for or anything crazy like that, but that's our number one priority. And then we can add, all the spice. We can add all the extra stuff and become musical drummers. But in the beginning, the number one priority is time, right? So think of yourself as a clock, a timepiece, a timekeeper. If you've ever seen any of those old-timey movies where the gentleman pulls a timepiece out of his breast pocket of his suit, jacket or something from here, and it's on a chain, and he looks at it, and it's a clock. Or it's a watch, I should say. An incredibly intricate piece of equipment, a watch. If you've ever seen somebody working on a watch or repairing a watch, where it's opened up and you see everything inside, turning and all the gears just precisely right to keep time. It's pretty incredible. So look that up on YouTube. Somebody repairing a watch or the inner workings of a watch. Pretty incredible because of how small it is and because of how precise it is. Pretty incredible stuff. And that's why I've chosen the location for my studio. Inside of a giant clock. The gears behind me are part of an old-timey clock because of the representation of time and how important it is. So we're going to get more into that. Let me just fix this on the fly a little bit. Let's do that. That's better. Yes. So time is very important. Now, so when we talked about how important time is when we're playing with other people, we also did a show where I talked about drumming's new landscape. You can check that out on the channel. I believe it was Friday's show. We talked about drumming's new landscape and how the reason that there is a new landscape in drumming is because there are so many new ways to create drumming content as well as consume drumming content. And so when we talk about the internet, we talk about YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and how many creators are out there playing drums for their internet audience, for their followers, for their subscribers. That's a whole new section of drumming in the drumming world. I grew up playing in front of crowds, playing with bands, playing with other musicians, and one of my first experiences seeing somebody play the drums, as incredible as it was for me and as lucky as I was I got to see Buddy Rich perform in the mid-70s when I was about 10 years old. And it was pretty incredible. I mean, I remember the performance. I also remember waiting for probably, a long time after the showtime was supposed to happen. And musicians and things like that, what happens, and sometimes they go on late. But I just remember having that experience, and I remember seeing the great, legendary Buddy Rich when he was young, but I was also young, and that kind of shaped me moving forward as a drummer. And we were there because a couple of years prior, I had discovered a drum set in the closet of a family friend's house, one of the kids' bedrooms, a drum set that he no longer played, that I pulled out of the closet and started to put together and hit with drumsticks. My father bought that drum set, shipped it back to New York where we were living at the time, and that began my journey of drumming. So that was when I was about 7 years old. So 10 years old, I'm at Disney World or Disneyland watching Buddy Rich perform. So with his big band. So, that was my moment, or one of my moments, one of my formative moments. And again, in the comment section, what was your formative drumming moment? What was the moment that kind of nudged you in the direction of playing drums? What was that moment? Who did you see? What did you experience that made you think, I want to do that? Okay, leave that stuff in the comment section below. I think it's super interesting. I love to hear people's origin stories as far as like how they started drumming, how they became interested. So big part of how young people discover drumming today is the internet and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. And so how that kind of performance differs from, let's say, a live performance that I saw when I was a kid, and the ideas about drumming that it gives you. When I saw Buddy Rich play, I said, wow, he's front and center, surrounded by all these other musicians. He is the focus. So that was something, right? So now when young kids are watching YouTube videos, they're just seeing one person. They're not seeing another band. They don't see the rest of the band. They see one person performing. And whether that person is soloing or playing along to a popular song, doing a drum cover, or doing instructional videos, whatever it is, this is what young people today are seeing in their first experiences with drumming. So I think that definitely warrants the idea of a changing drumming landscape. And I want to explore that deeper in incoming shows and through feedback and comments from you guys out there, because I'm really curious to explore this a little bit more. What are the differences today because of the way drumming has changed and how we see drumming and the way we deliver our content or make our art? Okay, how does that change the way maybe young kids come into their drum lessons, their ideas about drumming? And I'm going to explore that with my students as well. It may be a question I ask them just in conversation about what it was that made them feel like they wanted to play the drums. Because it's funny, I didn't think about it before that much, but a lot of my young students come in and they say they don't listen to music. So not only do we teach them about drums, but I talk to them about songs, and we listen to music in lessons, and I do the thumbs up, thumbs down game, where I say, okay, this is, you don't like it, this is meh, it's okay, I don't hate it, and this is, I like it. And then we go anywhere in between this dial over here, and it's really funny to see my students react, because now they're listening to music and they're trying to decide if they like it or not. And then from there, we can kind of formulate a taste, maybe what their taste might be. But I try to provide a wide range and variety of genres and types of music that they can really maybe gravitate towards a few different genres. But it gives them and us an opportunity to start to learn an appreciation for music and start to understand what we like or don't like about certain music. So that's something I like to do with my students. But when you're seeing somebody performing for a specific internet audience, their followers, their subscribers, it's different. Okay. And I'm not judging it one way or the other. It's just another way of drummers to create and showcase their art and their drumming. And I think it's awesome, right? Because if you're coming up in the world the way it is today with the internet, with social media, this is the way you learn to express yourself through drumming. And it's great. So it's just a way for more people to experience the joy of drumming, let's say. So let's see. Yeah, and I think that myself as a teacher, as an instructor, will do well to try to understand more about how my young students come into the world of drumming. And that's Louis protecting us. Thank you, Louis. Security. Okay. So I think, to sum this part of the Drumcast up, I think that my idea of what drumming is based on what I saw coming up as a young person and what drumming could be to young people coming up today could be vastly different. Even going back to the days of MTV, when music videos became big in the 80s, and you had a whole generation of people watching musicians perform on music videos. So if you were a drummer like me in the 80s coming up, watching all of your favorite bands, you got to see the drummers that you admired. You got to see them doing their thing in music videos. And now music videos not such a popular thing as they were back then. A lot of bands are releasing lyric videos, or you have YouTube creators taking popular songs to get their clicks and creating lyric videos for certain music. You have, bands do release official music videos and stuff like that, but it's definitely quite different than it was back then. It is cool to see, though, that lyrics are still important. So, to my weekend. My weekend was jam-packed full of teaching and student bands and actually drumming with my student bands, which I like. I don't like the fact that my drummer is out sometimes. I mean, it happens. Everybody, has things that come up and they can't make rehearsal. But it's super fun when I do have the opportunity to get up on the drum kit and jam with my students. And they seem to enjoy it too. And, it really just kind of gives us a little bit more bonding time. And we do talk about the timing aspect of it and everybody communicating and looking at each other and listening to each other as we're playing through the song. So that was a great Saturday. Now, Sunday, I was recording in the studio, laying down drum tracks for some new music that I'm involved with. And it was great. It was fun, and it was really productive until it wasn't. Until we got bitten by technology, which happens. Things suddenly disappear in the digital world, or in the digital framework within which we're working during the recording process. It's one of those things where you're connected and everything's working great and you're getting communication between certain parts of the studio. For example, the digital drum kit and the digital audio workstation. And then it doesn't. Then it's gone, right? Then it disappears for no reason whatsoever. And it's hard to figure out how to get it back and whatnot. Let's move this over here because we're going to be using that space for something else very, very soon. Let's try to put this in there too. All right, there we go. Right, production. All right, so on Sunday in the studio, tracking drums using a kit similar to this one. So I was very familiar with the Brain. I found a great drum sound that I wanted to go with, and we started tracking drums. Now, recording is nothing if it's not unpredictable. And it's super fun and exciting because you really get to hear your playing in a whole different light when you are recorded on professional equipment. As opposed to, let's say, playing in your rehearsal space on your acoustic drum set. When you hear your drums mic'd up, or you hear your electronic drums through the headphones mixed in with the other musicians, it's really a different experience. It's really super exciting and it's super cool. But one of the things, most of all, as a drummer, we need to know and be comfortable with is playing along to a click. Now, a click track is a metronome that is played along in the ears of whatever musician is tracking, but mostly the drummer, and it gives the drummer a reference of time to follow. And then this way, everybody else can sync up with the drums, whether or not they use the same metronome or they go off the drums that have been recorded to a metronome, ensuring that the time is solid. Either way, however each studio producer engineer does it. I'm working with an amazing producer at Code Blue Records in upstate New York, and it's really a great experience. I mean, Bob up at Code Blue recording Code Blue Records is an amazing talent and a throwback audio engineer and producer. He has incredible ears and his attention to detail is unmatched. And this is why I love working with him. I've worked with him before on many, many projects. Going back a long ways, we've been working together for a long time. We've been friends for a long time. And he's just the consummate professional and a really great producer at the same time that he's producing great sounds. He's also helping to produce great performances from the artists he's working with. So big shout out to Code Blue Records and Bob up there in upstate New York. Had a great time. And so metronome, yeah, click track. As drummers, we need to be comfortable with that click track. We need to be comfortable with that constant, steady framework of time. And so how do we do that, right? Because it's super important to be on time. I've said this over and over again as I work with my student bands and as I talk to you guys on the Drumcast. I've said it over and over again how important it is that we are on time, because the rest of the band is looking to us to kind of set the time and keep a steady tempo for them to follow so we can all lock in together. It makes for a very long drum tracking session if we show up to the studio unprepared and uncomfortable playing to a click track. Very long day, and that long day costs money, right? Let's face it. We want to spend more time producing and mixing than we do tracking. That's just the bottom line. That is one of the golden rules of recording. We want to make sure that we're tracking a lot less than we are producing. Because if you think about the time we spend in however many hours we're booked in the studio, small portion of it needs to be tracking, and the rest of it needs to be mixing and making everything sound amazing. So before you go into the studio, prepare yourself. Work with a metronome, which will help you work with a click track. Everybody, every musician, any musician that's getting ready to go into the studio, know your parts, be comfortable with a click, and be ready to do a few takes if need be. But we want to do as few takes as possible. And knowing your parts backwards and forwards, inside and out, and being able to comfortably play to a click track are two sure ways of really keeping that tracking time low, right? Okay, so let's talk about a metronome. Okay, we're going to see how this works, right? And let me see. Here we go. Okay, ready? Here is click metronome. This is what I use. This is a free app that is available for iPhone. At least it was. I don't know if it's still available, but there are so many free click metronome apps out there, whether you are in the Google Play space or in the Apple App Store space. You can find a free metronome, believe me. iPad, iPhone, whatever. This is the one I use. I put together a short little presentation here. First, what we're going to see, I'm going to run this little video clip. And first, what you're going to see is you're going to see the BPM. The first setting here we have is beats per minute. This is set to 120. Let's go ahead and run this. Okay, this is 120, and we're going to go ahead and go through some of these settings here, right? 4/4 is the time signature. We have the time signature going here. We can do 4/4. We can go ahead to 2/4, 3/4, 5/4, whatever it is we're looking for. Of course, you can change the volume of the output of the click, the type of sound. We have a cowbell. We have, what do they call those? Little clicker sticks. Hold on, that's way loud, it seems. Okay. Accented beat number 1. That's important. That tells us where the 1 is. We need to know that. And then we have subdivision volume, which we'll get to subdivisions in a minute or so. The flash on beat 1. These are all the display options that you have for this particular click. You'll find similar display options for all the click apps. This is beat subdivision. Right now we have quarter notes, eighth notes, triplets. We're still in 3/4 time. But let's go over to 4/4 time, and you can see we have triplet subdivisions. We have 16th note subdivisions, 8th note subdivisions. We have a triplet with a rested center note. We have 16th notes with different rests in different places. And we have a lot of really cool things that we can do with the metronome. Okay, so get yourself a metronome, explore, play around. The major settings on the metronome are going to be your time signature, your tempo, beats per minute, BPM, and your subdivisions. Now, what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to set up a tempo you're comfortable with, play play quarter notes with it to start, then eighth notes, then 16th notes, then triplets. You could do eighth note triplets, 16th note triplets. And if you're not sure how those subdivisions are supposed to sound, you can go ahead and you can click on that eighth note triplet subdivision, that 16th note triplet subdivision, 16th note straight, eighth note straight, and you can hear and see a representation of what these different subdivisions are supposed to sound like. Now in the click metronome, it's got a lot of really cool subdivisions of 16th notes where you can rest certain ones of those 4 16th notes in a beat, and you can come up with different rhythms. So you can start to really play around with them. And if you have a basic understanding of reading music, this will be really super helpful for you to learn about rhythms, and then learn about playing these different rhythms on time. Of course, again, going back to the idea of time, the metronome is there to increase our understanding and our proficiency with time. So get that metronome going, start playing around. It's a really fun game. And, right off the bat, do this, because this is what all my students want to do. How fast is the fastest BPM? How fast can we, and so you inevitably, every time I show a new student or a young student the metronome app, I have to crank it all the way as high as the BPM goes and as small as the subdivisions will go, and put it on for them, and they get a kick out of it. And then once that's out of the way, we can start talking about time and timing and subdivisions and quarter notes and where is the 1 and all of that stuff. Again, another great reason to have a metronome, when you can highlight the 1, it helps us to get a clear understanding in whatever time signature you're using, a clear understanding of where that 1 is. Because obviously, if you know where the 1 is, you know where the 2 is, you know where the 3 is, you know where the 4 is. And then we can really start to anchor ourselves within the time of the beats we're playing, the fills we're playing, whatever we're playing. We know exactly where we are in time, and that's super important, especially when we're playing along to music or we're writing music or whatever it is. It's important to know where the 1 is. Okay, so a metronome app like that, it would be really helpful to teach us about where the 1 is and start to get us understanding and having a good feeling about where the one is. Now, a metronome is going to set the stage for us, because what a metronome will help us do is build our own internal timing. And so, yes, when we're in the studio, we'll be playing to a metronome, but if you have some good internal timing, a metronome should be it should not be that difficult, not be that challenging to play to. And then as we're moving along, we don't have to count as much. We don't have to use a metronome as much, because we will be developing our own good sense of internal timing, which is the goal, right? So this has been the time tutorial. I hope you got something out of it. Go on any of your devices and find a good metronome app that you could use. And yes, they do still sell digital metronomes. You know, getting something online, going to your local music store, finding a digital metronome. If you can find, and I have to find, I used to have one, and I don't have it anymore. But I used to have that old-timey metronome that you find on pianos a lot, right? And, you know, another incredible piece of equipment, because depending on where you slide the weight up on the actual part that swings back and forth, it has all the BPMs written on it. So depending on where you put the weight is how quickly this goes back and forth. So that's how you figure out the tempo. And it's pretty incredible. So I'm going to look, I'm sure somebody's selling one somewhere, and I'm going to find an old-timey metronome, and probably an old-timey alarm clock, just to have it, because it's cool, along with the 8-track player that I want to buy, and the record player, of course. I don't think I want a cassette player. I probably have one somewhere, but I do have an old reel-to-reel recorder made by Sony that will be part of this whole kind of like nostalgia, retro equipment type of thing. But anyway, have a great week, everybody. I will see you on Wednesday. Please share, subscribe, like, visit all my socials on MarkZDrums across all platforms, and Mark Zapata Drums on YouTube. And yeah, go poke around my channel. See if there's anything you like. I have some new drum covers coming up soon. And don't forget to visit my Patreon channel, MarkZDrums on Patreon. We got stickers, and we have drum cover requests for members, and great stuff coming down the pike. We're just starting this thing. We're just starting the rollout. So, you know, it's very inexpensive right now, and you can get a lot of cool stuff in the beginning, and then we're just going to build as the community builds. So thank you again for tuning in. And you know what? I didn't even have, hold on. Let's see if there's, okay. Okay. And here's Louis. Louis coming in to say the same, to have a great week. And there he is, my buddy, taking his place right by my side as usual. So thank you all.